Since I finally read all of Richard Bachman's books, let's rank them, shall we? Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be ranking all 7 of Richard Bachman's books. So Richard Bachman, also known as Stephen King, Richard Bachman was a pseudonym in case you didn't know. Richard Bachman, or Stephen King under his pseudonym, wrote 7 books all the way from the 70s to the 2000s. He wrote 7 books in all, and now that I've finally read all 7 of them, I kind of have ranked them in my mind, and so now I want to rank them for you all and see whether or not we agree, disagree, or, kind of in between. Anyway, so of course this is a video I've been wanting to do for a while now. I started with Rage back in January of 2024. And now in November of 2025, I finished Blaze, the 7th and final Bachman book. And so now I can rank them for you all. So anyway, of course, my most popular video ever on my channel is ranking my top 10 favorite Stephen King books. One of which was a Bachman book, which you will find out in due time. But anyway... yeah, so basically this ranking will just kind of go to the same ways that Stephen King one, except instead of Stephen King books, it'll just specifically be his Bachman stuff. And yeah, so you know the rules, so let's get started with the ranking. Richard Bachman. In last place, number 7 is The Regulators. So this is no surprise to you if you watch a lot of other Bachman ratings. I see The Regulators either in 6th or 7th place all the time. And the reason why it's in my 7th place or last place in this case is just because it's more of like a Stephen King book, if it makes sense. It's like it was the companion piece to Desperation. But also, other than that, it's a town book, which, Stephen King is great at. See Salem's Lot, It, Needful Things, all that kind of thing. But also, as I said, since it's a companion piece to Desperation, I feel like you need to read Desperation to kind of understand some of the stuff that The Regulators has going for it. So, I mean, it's not a bad book by any means, but it's just that since it has literally another book that is a companion to it, I feel like you need to read that as well to kind of fully understand this one. So yeah, this isn't a bad book. It just has the most work going into it to understand it. Richard Bachman. Alrighty, and the number 6 spot is Blaze. So of course, this was the most recent one I've read. It is the latest Richard Bachman book as of 2007. We don't think any more will be coming, by the way, so I think this is it. Anyway, so yeah, Blaze, I keep hearing great things about this. Like, as I said in the dedicated Blaze review video that I made, I said that Blaze is usually ranked as like the 1 or 2 of the favorite Bachman books. But, I mean, I just didn't see it. The story itself was interesting because it's kind of like Of Mice and Men a little bit, with a big mentally deficient guy kidnapping an infant. And so that's really interesting, but what really bogs this book down for me is just that like half the book, or even over half of it, is just like Blaze's backstory. And while I do appreciate backstory is very important to understanding a character, there's just way too much of it in this book, and this book is already very short as it is. So if Blaze was a longer book, I would be able to be forgiving more of the longer backstory, but with how short it is, this just isn't really like worth it to me. I mean, again, it's a perfectly fine book, but it's just ranked low because of how short it is and how much of the backstory takes up. So, yeah, this is my number 6 spot. Richard Bachman. Coming in at the number 5 spot is The Running Man. So, The Running Man was actually the second Bachman book that I ever read back in April of 2024. And then, of course, the new movie just came out, so I had to reread it for that. And this kind of solidified my feelings. The Running Man is a perfectly fine book, but a lot of other people have said that this is more about plot than actual character, which I think is fairly accurate. We don't get a lot of Ben Richards' life before he enters into the Running Man like you might expect. So basically, this book kind of fixes what I have with no backstory about the main character, and instead is just all the way plot. And I think there needs to be a nice balance. So, I mean, this book is very entertaining. It goes by very fast. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And then, of course, the ending is, well, one of the most unforgettable endings I think I've ever read in a book. But yeah, overall, The Running Man is just kind of more of like an action story as told by Stephen King, apparently, instead of, anything else. It's not a horror, it's a sci-fi action adventure. So if you like that, then you'll definitely like The Running Man. But the reason why it's number 5 is just like I said, it's more about the plot than actual characters, which of course, knowing Stephen King is very weird indeed, because he like masters every single character he's ever written. But yeah, so The Running Man is just a perfectly fine book. I'd also recommend seeing the new movie as well. But yeah, The Running Man is a number 5 just because it's a little less interesting than the next 4 on this list.
Richard Bachman.
And the number 4 spot goes to Thinner. So Thinner is, I guess, the first Bachman book that really felt like a Stephen King book. In fact, if you saw my video, as well as many others across YouTube, you will see that Thinner is actually the book that got Stephen King ousted as Richard Bachman in the first place. So there's like a whole discussion for that. Basically, this one is about a lawyer named Billy Halleck who, after committing vehicular manslaughter, gets cursed to lose weight until he either reverses the curse or wastes away into nothing and dies. So this one is, of course, very interesting. We do get some backstory, unlike The Running Man, but not too much, unlike Blaze. So yeah, Thinner is kind of a nice balance between character and plot, because like losing weight consistently, like more over time until you just waste away and die, that's terrifying. That is actually terrifying. I know that a lot of people want to lose weight, but hopefully not like this. So anyway, yeah, Thinner is just a very interesting book because, for all the reasons I said, it's about losing weight drastically until you die. So you either have to die or find a way to reverse it somehow. So yeah, it's very interesting. And then, as I said, it's also the last Bachman book that was published before Richard Bachman was revealed to be Stephen King. So yeah, that's kind of a whole thing in itself. But anyway, so yeah, Thinner is just a number 4 because it's just very interesting. It's also like the third or second longest Bachman book, even though it's not very long in itself. See, look at that. But so yeah, it is just a very interesting read, and you can blow through it like I did.
Richard Bachman.
All right, so we've officially hit the top 3 Richard Bachman books. So if you know what the Bachman books are, I'm sure you've already guessed which ones I have yet to show, but you probably don't know which order they are in. So number 3 in the third place spot is Roadwork. And so I don't know about you, but I've seen so many videos of people just trashing Roadwork. Like they say it's awful. It's just about a guy slowly losing his sanity, and so like it's just boring and drab and awful and whatever, but the ending seems to be okay. Well, I feel the exact opposite. Roadwork is a very engaging story because it's about a guy who finds out that both his house and his place of work are going to be torn down in order to make way for a new road. And so he wants to do something about that. So he slowly loses his mind, buying weapons and just deciding to go after the construction team who's doing this to him. And so that just sounds very interesting to me. I love character studies, and Roadwork is basically a character study. It's just Barton Dawes, who's the main character. he just slowly loses his mind over the course of the story, drastically getting crazier and crazier, trying to do something about this road that's going to inevitably happen whether he likes it or not. And so that's very interesting. And yeah, it's basically just exploring his life and what's led to this. And as I said, it's a nice balance between his backstory and his current life. And yeah, so Roadwork is just really interesting. I don't know why everyone hates this one so much. Probably just because there's not a lot of action in it. But I'd say that it doesn't need a lot of action as long as it has a lot of interesting character, which this book has in droves. So yeah, Roadwork is severely underrated, and I would recommend every single one of you read it if you have not. But anyway, for those reasons and more, it is on my number 3 spot.
Richard Bachman.
Okay, so here we have the number 2 spot. It's between one Bachman book and another. So which one is my second favorite Bachman book? Well, that answer is The Long Walk. So just like The Running Man, I reread The Long Walk because I've read it the first time last year, but I reread it for the new movie, which I saw the new movie. It was okay. Anyway, so The Long Walk is, well, I'm sure it needs no introduction, but in case it does, The Long Walk is about 100 boys who every year enter this competition called the Long Walk, where there is no finish line. You walk until you either die or you're the only one standing out of 100 boys. So, of course, that is very dark and stuff. And this is also one of Stephen King's most thrilling ones. Because, I mean, people die like every page almost. It's like people die all the time. Again, it starts with 100, and the book doesn't end until there's only one person standing. I don't know if you heard that, but okay. Anyway, so yeah, that is a very interesting premise. It also paved the way for stuff like maybe even The Running Man later on, but Hunger Games, that was like the main thing that inspired the death competition, if you will. And also, Stephen King wrote this when he was like 19 or something. It's supposed to be like an allegory for the Vietnam War of how like these young men were just going in to die for virtually no reason. And so Stephen King kind of wanted to replicate that. I don't think he ever outright came out and said that it was based off the Vietnam War, but given the time frame, it makes a lot of sense. But anyway, yeah, so The Long Walk, it's short, it's sweet, and it's certainly thrilling. So if you want a Stephen King book that's short, sweet, and thrilling, The Long Walk is definitely the book for you. But, of course, this is the number 2 spot. And so there's, of course, one last Bachman book to get to. And I'm sure you all know what it is. But since The Long Walk is the number 2, let's get to my number 1.
Richard Bachman.
So, of course, here we are at the number 1 spot, my favorite Richard Bachman book of all time. And you already know what it is, so I'll just go ahead and review it or reveal it. But it is, of course, Rage, the first Bachman book, also known as the one that Stephen King will never let be published again. So, of course, if you don't know the story, Rage is about a school shooter who kills 2 teachers and holds his class hostage while constantly learning more about himself and the others in the classroom. And it's kind of like a Die Hard meets Breakfast Club scenario where they're hostages, but they also learn a lot about each other and themselves and whatever. And in the 80s and 90s, it inspired a slew of actual school shootings where people just read that part of the book and were just like, I actually like that. And so they actually recreated it. And so, long story short, in 1997, after the Heath High School shooting, Stephen King let it fall out of print. So the only way you can really read it nowadays is with one of these, which is a Bachman Books omnibus. The first story of which is Rage. You can find solo editions online, but they're thousands of dollars. So I'd recommend finding one of these to save a lot of money. But anyway, so yeah, Rage is the very first Bachman book that I read. It started me on the Bachman journey. And what an experience it was. It's like, I keep hearing negative reviews about how Rage is either like too problematic, which I can understand given why it's out of print. And I've also heard that it's just not written very well. And I agree sort of with that. It's not written to like Stephen King's best. You can definitely tell that he was very young. He was like 17 or 18. He was in high school when he started writing Rage. But so like I can definitely see why it may not be written the best, but I certainly enjoy it because not only is it the most shocking one of all, I mean it's about a school shooter. You hardly get that in books, even though it's very prevalent today, even more than in the 70s when it was released. But also it's just very interesting. It's really a look at how society kind of shuns the minorities, say the people with mental health issues or teenagers or people in school or whatever. So it's really a look at societal issues that teenagers face, even teenagers with mental problems that society doesn't really want to take accountability for. And it's really a cry out for society to do better. Now, of course, I mentioned all this in not only my Rage review that I did in February of 2024, but also my top 10 favorite Stephen King books because this was the number 4 spot on there. So I also mentioned that in there. But yeah, Rage, even though it could be seen as problematic. I say that if you look past the school shooting angle of it and look at it as here's what society does to teenagers and minorities, I think it's a very powerful book about how society should do better in regards to mental health and teenager welfare in general. Because I was in high school not too long ago. I'm 21 now, but when I was in high school, high school is just kind of the worst, but also the best. I didn't go through like any bullying or anything, but you could definitely tell that high school has pressures that a lot of high schoolers face and stuff. So I think this book is very important, not as a way to get back at the people who wronged you, but as a way for society to kind of be like, maybe we should start treating teenagers better. So yeah. Anyway, I know this is a very controversial choice. Literally everyone I've talked to either outright hates it, doesn't know it exists, or was too crazy to act upon it. But yeah, I love Rage. It is my favorite Bachman book, as you can see. And I've already read it twice, and I look forward to reading it many more times in the future. And I'm even trying to get a solo edition so that I can say that I have it. But anyway, so yeah, Rage will forever be my number 1 favorite Richard Bachman book. So that was my ranking for the Bachman books. Please, guys, let me know how I did, or even let me know how you would rank the Bachman books. I am very aware that my opinions on both Blaze and Rage will be very controversial to a lot of people. Also, probably the Roadwork one. But yeah, in my Blaze video, I mentioned that I would do a video like this, so here it is. And I also plan on doing a video where I do an entire deep dive of Richard Bachman, like who he is, his connection to Stephen King, how he's created, everything like that, his entire life story, because Stephen King gave him an entire biography. I know, that's kind of insane. But anyway, so yeah, please do let me know if you like this video or not. And just tell me your ranking for the Richard Bachman books. I would love to hear from all of you. Remember, there are 7 in all, so try to include all 7. But if you haven't read all 7, I will accept 6 because, as I said, Rage is kind of hard to find. So it can either be all 7 or the other 6. I don't really care, but yeah, leave me your rankings if you feel like it. But yeah, guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my ranking for the Richard Bachman books. As I said, please let me know your rankings down below, whether it's a top 7 or a top 6, because, Rage. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. I am very close to 300 subscribers, so I would be very grateful to you guys if you helped me get there, or if you helped me get there before the end of the year. And yeah, as I said, a Richard Bachman deep dive video will be coming. But with that in mind, thank you for watching. I've been Mr. BG. This has been BG's Books, and I will see you guys in the next video.